Welcome back. South Africa has one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world, and there have been calls to extend the 16 days of activism to 365 days. The MOSAIC Training, Service and Healing Centre says ending the scourge requires a united front. For more on this, Tarisai Mchuchu-Macmillan from the centre joins us from Cape Town. Tarisai, good morning. Thanks for your time this Saturday. I want to start off with the broader context of gender-based violence in South Africa. I think amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, we've kind of taken our eye off the ball in terms of a lot of other social ills and focused very much on health. But give us some context to how women have experienced lockdown, those who are exposed to violence from a partner, an intimate partner, or from someone in their close living circumstances. What have they been experiencing for the past year and a half?
Well, good morning. I think we need to put at least the situation of intimate partner violence and domestic violence in context of the broader GBV situation even prior to COVID. So prior to COVID, we know there were high rates of domestic violence, of gender-based violence, particularly violence against women. Then we fast-tracked into the COVID period, where we all are forced to be locked into our own homes, considering that we are being kept safe from the pandemic, from COVID-19 and contracting the disease. But for those that live with people who use violence against them, home has not been the safest space. And what we have found actually is in lockdown times, help-seeking behavior drops because they cannot leave the home because the perpetrator is also in the home. And then what happens when a lockdown eases? So for instance, with the third wave, where we see that between level 4 and level 3, when we move to level 3, when people can move again and people are going back to work, we see a spike in people seeking help, and it shows us that people are trapped with abusers in their homes. So it's a huge scourge. It's a huge problem because you actually, like the president last year said, GBV is the second pandemic or the shadow pandemic, but we actually know that it's the main pandemic because COVID has come and it will pass sometime. But we've had long-standing issues with violence against women.
Talk about the 16 days of activism. Traditionally, 16 days between the 25th of November and the middle of December, when we focus our attention very much on talking about issues of gender-based violence, the kind of circumstances that many women across the country face, and the kind of things we need to be doing to curb the rate of violence against women. Obviously, 16 days is not enough. That's been apparent for quite some time. But you're saying we should extend that to 365 days. Do you think we can maintain the level of activism needed right throughout the year to curb this scourge?
I think so, and would argue that it is possible. We know that the situation in terms of violence against women is a daily lived reality for many of us. Women are not safe, not only in the home, but also in the workspace. So gender-based violence is a big issue. So it's something that we cannot focus on, activism, in 16 days, because what happens to the rest of the year? And so in particular times where we have issues like this, we cannot afford, because it's a life and death situation. It's about human rights. And if we are not focusing on the scourge, we are essentially reducing women to celebratory days or to focusing on specific days instead of making sure that we eliminate this violence for 365 days, so that at least there comes a time where we never have to speak about violence against women. We want to end it, and we won't end it if we only focus on it in 16 days.
And of course, this conversation is taking place in the context that Monday is Women's Day. So we're looking at women's issues today. But I want to ask the question that activism is all fine and well, but unless we change behavior, that activism has very little impact. Are we seeing any changes in behavior? And are we seeing the right kinds of conversations taking place at a broader societal level to try and really get to the crux of what's behind violence against women?
I think we're starting to make shifts in terms of the way social norms, social conversations. We are starting to see that people are not accepting violence, particularly intimate partner violence, domestic violence. However, we are still a long way to go, specifically when we're talking about gender transformation, that behavior change. There are pockets of society that are not on Twitter, on social media, that are not engaged in the conversation. There are also people that are being cushioned in workspaces, right? So in terms of corporates, whether even in radio and television, in government, particularly because us as NGOs who have designed these programs have access during the day and we run our workshops, but who attends our workshops? It's people who are in the townships, people who are unemployed, who have the time to attend a workshop. So what we actually need to, but we also know that violence against women, gender-based violence, is not being perpetrated by people who are poor, Black, and in the township. It's actually being all walks of society. We know that it's a wider scourge. If we look at the news and who's committing these crimes, radio personalities, we've got people in government, we've got people in corporates, employed, educated people, people that we esteem in society. So we do need to start ensuring that we have gender sensitization and transformative programming at school level, all schools, not just in the townships, all schools, where you've got young boys particularly, also teachers who are teaching them. They also come from their own cultural and social norms. We need to be in police, first responders, because a police officer's attitude towards a woman who comes to respond or to report domestic violence is very important. Because if they sent that person who comes to report and say, I'm being abused, and they say, well, go sort it out, it happens in relationships, that's toxic, that's dangerous. So we want to change that, and we can't be changing that by saying, conduct workshops with people with time. So it needs transformation in terms of that in your HR development, where you do trainings, you need to be making time for gender transformative programming and sensitization within the workspace, because those people are going back home after work.
Well, thank you very much for taking part in the conversations here on eNCA as part of an attempt to try and have those conversations on a broader level, to look at the issues, to look at what's happening on the ground, and to look at some solutions to come. Thank you very much for your time. Tarisai Mchuchu-Macmillan from the MOSAIC Training, Service and Healing Centre, for your time.